Okay, Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Kareem Mubarak. Hope you are well wherever you are, and welcome back. Finally got this one started. Sorry about not being able to make it yesterday, and I also had to delay this one a bit longer than I wanted to, but we're here now. Let me just check quickly the chat, see who we have with us. Cyan Instinct. Yes, the thumbnail, and a few questions about that. Maybe some would recognize what reference it is to in terms of the verse in the Qur'an, not just the enemy it's from. Assalamu alaikum Ali. Hello, IMHS, Helix, Mark, Elena, Hamid and Iron Man. Assalamu alaikum, good to have you. Ashraf, good to see you again. And Harun. All right, okay. Let me get this started now, because as usually happens when I delay something that I've had prepared, I end up adding too much to it, and so this has become a bit, it might seem a bit bloated. Haven't had a chance to sort of like streamline it more, but let's just get on with the presentation. And as always, remember the stream. I should be remembering to say this at the beginning of each stream, but remember please that this stream is really meant for to encourage people to just contemplate the Qur'an. It's supposed to be a caravan. Anybody can come on and just share some contemplation, some tadabbur of verses of the Qur'an, without, it's not going to be something where we have to debate it or argue about it or anything like that. Just come on and share something. That will be excellent. All right, so this is actually, I decided to do this going on from the last stream where we had our friend Alif, I think he goes by, who was asking about the verse which talks about how Jannah is haram for the Mushrik, right? So I've always wanted to actually talk about that verse in a place that I could point people towards, because I get, you get asked about this verse a bit, and because of how I see shirk, not the same as sort of the mainstream. So I thought, let me talk about that. And when I was preparing it, it led me on to another verse which is related, and I thought I'd talk about that. So this could have been two different streams, but I put it together. So apologies in advance if it's a bit long. Okay, so Jannah prohibited for the Mushrik. This is in this verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 72. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم وقال المسيح يا بني إسرائيل اعبدوا الله ربي وربكم إنه من يشرك بالله فقد حرم الله عليه الجنة ومأواه النار وما للظالمين من أنصار. They have committed kufr. Now I've amended some of the translations in these slides. They're mostly based off Sahih International, but I've just amended them a little bit in some places. So they have committed kufr. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ. They've done a kufr. Okay? Those who said, Allah is the Masih, the son of Mary. Okay? Meanwhile, I put here, the Masih has said, he said, O children of Israel, i'budullah, serve Allah. In the translations, we'll usually say worship. But really, it's ibadah, it's servitude. Serve Allah, my Lord and your Lord. And then the next part, it could be read as being something that Isa is saying, or it's just part of the verse, i.e. Allah is saying it. It's not like a quotation from him. This part here, okay? You could read it as something that Isa said, or not. But it says, indeed, he who associates others with Allah, he who shirks with Allah, who commits shirk with Allah, who is engaged in shirk with Allah, Allah has forbidden for him paradise, and his refuge is the fire, and there is not for the wrongdoers any helper. Okay, so I just have some points to make about this. First of all, okay, it isn't It isn't إنه من أشرك بالله, okay, but rather إنه من يشرك بالله. Okay, now what's the difference? Well, the first, this إنه من أشرك بالله, right, من أشرك بالله. The first one is about an act or a single instance of shirk. Truly, he who does a shirk with Allah, من أشرك بالله, right? It's not about the person himself being a mushrik. Okay, it's about من أشرك, whoever commits a shirk. Okay, it is like in the verse, truly God does not forgive and yushrika bihi, right? Right, it's in that same verse, inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushrika bihi. Allah does not forgive that shirk should be done with him, right? And I've explained that, meaning that the shirk is never forgiven. It's never forgiven. It will always be there on the day of judgment, always be part of the scales, right? The shirk itself is never forgiven. Okay, so it is about the act itself; it isn't forgiven, whereas other acts are forgiven for whoever God wills, and that's how the verse continues. وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. He forgives whatever is less or other than that for whoever He wills. Right? So He can forgive the shirk of somebody. That person may not necessarily be a mushrik. Right? That person may not necessarily be a mushrik, right? So he will not forgive the shirk of that person, but he can forgive the other things, all right? And there'd be no point, how some people think that a single act of shirk leads you into hellfire. There'd be no point in forgiving everything else for somebody who has committed a shirk. Anyway, the latter is more it's more of a description of the person themselves. إِنَّهُ مَن يُشْرِكْ, the person who is doing it, right? That is a person who is engaged in the act even now. It's like saying in the continuous sense in English, he who is shirking, okay, with Allah, okay? إِنَّهُ مَن يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ, he who is shirking with Allah, Allah has made Jannah haram for him. Okay, so that's the first point about that. The next point, the saying quoted isn't shirk. Okay, the saying actually being quoted here isn't shirk, it's kufr. That's what the verse actually says. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ. That is not a statement of, that is not shirk, right? It is kufr. Okay, it's similar to that tritheism verse which I've mentioned before, and that is because, as mentioned often, shirk is about ibadah and servitude. Okay, shirk isn't about what you say. Okay, it is about what you do. Okay, shirk is not said, shirk is done, and it's done towards people normally. Okay, so a statement can be a statement of kufr, but no statement can be a statement of shirk. But I don't see that anywhere in the Quran yet. I mean, it needs double checking, but I don't see anywhere where a statement is a statement of shirk, even in the tritheism verse, right? The tritheism verse. Do I have it here? Yes, I do. So, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثَةٍ. This is called kufr. It's not called shirk, right? And that's the next verse. It's the very next verse from this verse. Anyway, right? So it's verse 73. So in the next verse, the verse of tritheism, where they say, right? It's something said that God is the third of three. Okay, yeah. In this verse, there is no mention of shirk. There is no mention of mushrik, right? Even though linguistically, God is literally here being associated with two other gods in a group of three gods. Right, you've got a group of three gods, and God is the third among those three. Okay, linguistically, that's sort of like an association, if you want to use the English word for it. But in saying that, that is a kufr, right? It's remember, kufr is more about ingratitude, right? So Allah is the one who has done everything. He is the only ilah. He created everything, and instead of being grateful to only Him, you now have given some of that to others, right? That's kufr. That's kufr in Allah. It's ingratitude towards Him. Okay, by saying other aliha, right? And He's even the third of them. Even saying in Allah, awwal thalathin is the first of three. No, you're saying even He's the third of three. Okay. And the point is, it is not called shirk, it's called kufr. And the threat is against الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, even in the verse, okay? If they don't stop saying that. So the verse reads, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا, they said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثَةٍ وَمَا مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِلَّا إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. And yet there is no God except one God, okay? وَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهُوا عَمَّا يَقُولُونَ. And if they do not desist or stop from what they are saying, لَيَمَسَّنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَلِيمٌ. Then they'll surely touch or be inflicted upon الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who have kafaru, not ashraku, not the mushrikeen among them, a grievous punishment. Okay. So shirk doesn't come up here because it is all about what is said. Okay, in this verse, the verse of tritheism, it's all about what is being said, right? And there's no mention of others following, okay, in this kufr, due to servitude to those who say it. Okay, there's no mention of ibadah, right? So that's why in this verse, there's nothing about shirk. And when you come to the verse in question, which we are talking about, where it says, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ, saying that, okay, that is kufr, right? Saying that Allah is the Masih, the son of Mary, that's kufr. It's not shirk. The shirk in this verse is because this verse does talk about ibadah, about servitude. Okay, and as I mentioned again and again, shirk is all about ibadah. It's all about servitude. So going back to where I was in these slides, okay. So the shirk in that verse, in the verse in question, is in following the kufr in ibadah. Okay, that's what the shirk is. Okay, the shirk is in following the proponents of the kufr. Okay, to be in servitude to them, to be in obedience to them, submission to them, following what they say. Okay, that's the shirk. Right, the shirk is always towards the people. Okay, so it's in the same way that shaitan is not a mushrik. Right, shaitan is not a mushrik. What is shaitan? He's a kafir. Right, he's a kafir. Shirk is an ibadah to him. It's an ibadah to shaitan. Okay, either directly or via his awliya. So hence even Ibrahim says to his father, "Oh my father, don't serve shaitan. لا تعبد الشيطان. Don't be in ibadah to shaitan." And it says in the shaitan كان لربه عصيا, right? And also in Surah Yasin, we have, did I not enjoin upon you, O children of Adam, that you do not serve shaitan? ألم أحد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان, right? It's an ibadah to shaitan that you have the shirk. Okay, so in this verse, the mushrik, man yushrik billah, right, is the one in ibadah to those who are propagating the kufr that the Messiah, that inna Allah huwa al-Masih ibn Maryam, that Allah is the Masih, son of Mary. Okay, the mushrik is the one who is in ibadah to those who are propagating that. It isn't the one who is saying that. The one who is saying that, that's kufr. Saying that is kufr. Okay, it's not shirk. Again, so may yushrik in that verse is an ibadah to those who laqad kafar, those who said the kufr. And you are being warned against them. Okay, the shirk isn't in saying what they said, because that is established by the verse as kufr, not shirk. The shirk is in following them. So hence the Messiah, the Masih himself, the object of the kufr in this verse, is shown as directing the ibadah to Allah. Okay, he's directing the ibadah to Allah. Not that he's directing it away from himself, he's directing it away from those who said that. Okay, you have two counter sayings here, two counter narratives. There are those who did kufr and said Masih is Allah, and then there's Isa Hussein being ibadah to Allah, and he's directing them to follow that rather than follow what they say. Okay, those of kufr. Okay, so the Messiah is shown as directing the ibadah to Allah, his Lord, and the Lord of even those who propagate the kufr. Okay, so again, shirk proliferates kufr. Shirk, it proliferates kufr, right? Because shirk is essentially ibadah to kufr, or to الذين كفروا. right? That's how you have to think about it. Fourth point, what was this? Yeah, so again, and that's why that verse, the verse which actually doesn't mention shirk, actually mentions that the two people, those who said the kufr, and it mentions Bani Israel. Otherwise, why does the verse even mention Bani Israel? Why doesn't the Messiah just say, why doesn't the verse just say, وَقَالَ الْمَسِيحِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ رَبِّي وَرَبَّكُمْ? Why is the Messiah quoted as calling to the children of Israel? Okay, so in the verse, the Messiah is quoted as saying, "O children of Israel, Ya Bani Israel, i'budullaha Rabbi wa Rabbukum, serve Allah, my Lord and your Lord." Okay, why isn't it just? Why isn't the verse just while the Messiah said, "Serve Allah, my Lord and your Lord"? Okay, why is it addressed specifically for Bani Israel? Because whether due to prophecy or seeing it happening in front of him, it was to counter those among Bani Israel who would fall into ibadah to the rabbis, the priests, and those who propagate the kufr. Right? So he saw this happening either as a prophecy for a future or in front of him, and so he was addressing them to not be in ibadah to those who propagated that kufr. Again, we're talking about counter streams, counter narratives, what they said and what he was teaching. Okay, and following what Isa was saying, because it comes back to what Allah is saying to do. It's not shirk, right? But in following a kufr, that is shirk, right? So some people will sometimes ask, obedience to, for example, obedience to the messenger, and being humble towards him, and doing what he says. That is not shirk, okay? Because he's commanding you towards what Allah is commanding, right? In the same way, for example, the Prophet is told to declare that if Allah had a son, if Allah had taken a son, then he would be the first of his abideen, the first of his worshippers. Okay, but that would not be shirk. It would still not be shirk, right? To be in ibadah to the son of Allah, if Allah were to take a son, and the Quran talks about that possibility, right? That if Allah had wanted to take a son, He would have chosen from what He created, the best thing, basically. لَاصْطَفَى مِمَّا يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. But nevertheless, the Prophet is commanded to say that, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدٌ فَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْعَابِدِينَ. If Ar-Rahman had a son, I would be the first to be in ibadah to him. And the Quran talks about أَن تُشْرِكُ بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا, that you are in shirk towards Allah in that upon which He has sent down no authority. Okay, the messenger has been given authority. Okay, Musa was given authority, Sultan. The Prophet was given authority, right? That's not part of the shirk that we're talking about. Just like the idolatry that most Muslims think is shirk, that's not what we're talking about in the Quran. So it's about ibadah to others with Allah, especially really in that which they have commanded against what Allah is commanding. It's in that clash, okay? In that clash between your ibadah to Allah and ibadah to others, where you sometimes choose ibadah to others, that is where shirk resides. Okay, so let me just read what I wrote here. Why is that addressed specifically for Bani Israel? Because whether due to prophecy or seeing it happening in front of him, it was to counter those among Bani Israel who would fall into the ibadah of those propagating the said kufr. Okay, which is why this verse mentions shirk and mushrik. You have all of the elements. Okay, you have the propagators of kufr, you have a counter to that kufr, which is plain. You have mention of ibadah and its choice, being Allah, your Lord, and your Lord versus others, right? Versus an ibadah to others. If you're an ibadah to Allah or you're an ibadah to others. If you're an ibadah to Allah, my Lord and your Lord, or you're an ibadah to these others. Okay? And then those who are being targeted with ibadah. They're being targeted with ibadah, both by Allah calling them to ibadah to Himself, and they calling to themselves, essentially. Okay? So that's the first part, just about that verse. And the statement, this is where I wanted to go on to the next part. which is the Qur'an's similitude of the mushrik. Okay, sort of the phrase "may yushrik billah." Okay, the phrase "and he who shirks with Allah," if you put it that way, and he who is shirking with Allah, if you'd like to put it that way as well. It comes up just a few times in a few other places in the Quran. It doesn't come up a lot, but one of them is particularly, edifying, especially for those who still doubt that shirk is neither about idols, nor structures, nor saying X, Y, Z. Okay, that's not what shirk is about. And the location of this verse is also, very instructive. So, we're going to start a few verses early to see what we're talking about here. So it's in Surah Al-Hajj, so you can guess what it's about. Yes, that's right, Hajj. We're going to start from verse 26 onwards. And it says, وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ أَلَّا تُشْرِكَ بِي شَيْئًا وَطَهِّرْ بَيْتِيَ لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْقَائِمِينَ وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُودِ. And mention, O Muhammad, when we designated for Ibrahim the site of the house, the Kaaba, saying, La tushrik bi shay'a, right? So there is a actual house, physical object, right, being designated here, being brought up, and we are told, La tushrik bi shay'an, wa tahhir, do not be in ibadah to others with me, basically, and purify my house for what? For tawaf, for standing in prayer, and for bowing in prostration. Okay? Next verse. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. Right? And proclaim to the people the Hajj, pilgrimage, Hajj to this house. Right? They're going to come from all over to a pilgrimage towards this house. Right? The brick and mortar house. Okay? Why? ليشهدوا منافع لهم ويذكروا اسم الله في أيام معلومات. Okay, that they may witness benefits for themselves and mention the name of Allah and remember Allah on known days over what He has provided for them of the sacrificial animals. Okay, على ما رزقهم من بهيمة الأنعام. Okay, فكلوا منها وأطعموا البائس والفقير. So eat of them and feed the miserable and the poor. ثم ليقضوا تفثهم وليوفوا نذورهم وليطوفوا بالبيت العتيق. And then let the pilgrims accomplish their acts of cleansing, basically finish their rites. Okay, and let them fulfill their vows and let them do a tawaf, circumvent, right, go around the ancient house. Okay, so what we're talking about here, we're talking about the rites, the rituals of Hajj. Then it says ذلك وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ حُرُمَاتِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ. That, this Hajj, or this, or thus, and it's sort of like a full stop. ذَلِكَ, it's sort of like a full stop, that or thus. And it says, and whoever magnifies or venerates the sacred things, the symbols of Allah, right? وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ حُرُمَاتِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ. وحل لكم الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم فاجتنبوا الرجس من الأوثان واجتنبوا قول الزور. So it's better so whoever magnifies the sacred things, the sacred symbols of Allah, it's a good thing. Okay, to magnify these things is a good thing. It's good in the sight of Allah, right? Because it's connected with Allah. It's part of His dhikr, right? And then it says, and the cattle are made lawful unto you except for that which has been recited to you before. So shun filth from idols and shun false speech. Okay, so it's mostly talking about the sacrifices that are done to the idols that were still around in Mecca at the time, or in any place, it doesn't matter, and shun false speech. So note that these verses are about Hajj and the rituals done in Hajj. Okay, rituals which some anti-Islamists and even Qur'anists now have called shirk and idolatry, right? There are some even among Qur'anists who will say that doing tawaf around the Kaaba, that's shirk, that's idolatry. The animal sacrifices done at or sent to the Kaaba, and of course not for the Kaaba to eat of it or anything, but it's to feed the people around it, right? But that's shirk, okay? The running between the Safa and Marwa, okay, that's shirk. And other rituals, drinking Zamzam water is shirk. All of these things, are some who say that, right, about these rituals which were there before Islam, right? So they think these were pagan rituals, kissing the black stone, that's shirk, right? All of these sort of things, right? Um, these verses are all about Hajj. These things which were all happening at the time, and they're all about the Hajj, which was known. Okay, yeah, these are mentioned here as occasions for the remembrance of Allah. And whoever extols or exalts or magnifies the sacred things of Allah, the sacred symbols, then it's better for him before his Lord. And whoever exalts the symbols of Allah, as we will see later, then it is from the taqwa of the heart. It is not shirk, it's not polytheism, right? And then we come to the verse which I want to talk about, because nestled in, right after this verse, nestled in among these verses about external physical rituals of Hajj, which center around, again, what some will ignorantly call as just, pagan rituals, is a seminal verse about what real shirk is, about the state of a real mushrik. Okay, that it isn't, that isn't an accident. The placement of this verse in the middle of these verses of Hajj, okay, which are just, you could externally look at them as just almost like pagan rituals, okay. The verse with this imagery about the mushrik being among these verses is not an accident, okay. And that in what did I write here? Okay, there is an accident that this verse is here, and that in verses before and after, we have extolling of the symbols and the sacred things of Allah, okay, for the remembrance of Allah, and as a vehicle for the remembrance of Allah, okay, for the remembrance of Allah. All of that is mentioned before and after this verse. Okay, it's obvious that such honoring and venerating and extolling of these things is not shirk, right? So, okay, the mushrik. So what is shirk, or who is the mushrik? Okay, an example is given here to show you the state of one in shirk, one who is engaged in this ibadah, who is steeped in ibadah to others besides Allah. And it isn't an image of a person single-minded for Allah through symbols and rituals, like the Hajj. Okay, it is an image of one turned upside down and dispersed with no real anchor. Somebody being pulled and snatched at and plucked in multiple directions, or whisked off away in one direction. Okay, so it's in this next verse. So what does it say? ذَلِكَ. Okay, ذَلِكَ. That is the command. So talking about all of these previous verses about Hajj. ذَلِكَ. Okay, ذَلِكَ. وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ حُرُمَاتِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ عند ربه وحلت لكم الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم فاجتنبوا الرجس من الأوثان واجتنبوا قول الزور. That's one we just mentioned. And then the next verse says what? حنفاء لله غير مشركين به. Okay, inclining, turning, or dedicated only to Allah, not engaging in shirk with Him. Right, in all of these rituals of Hajj, and in your being commanded towards them, there is nothing which opposes being a Hanif. Okay, and it's not part of shirk. Okay, i.e., all the previous is done and commanded with turning to Allah and dedication to Him, and not in ibadah to anyone else, and certainly not in ibadah to anything. Okay, it's not in ibadah to the Kaaba, it's not in ibadah to the Safa and Marwa, it's not in ibadah to the Zamzam water, it's not ibadah to the black stone, it's none of that. Okay, so don't think in doing these rituals around essentially stones is shirk. Okay, all the previous rituals of Hajj are still part of being a Hanif to Allah and not of being a Mushrik. Okay, they are not incompatible in the least. Instead, this verse continues, حُنَفَاءَ لِلَّهِ غَيْرَ مُشْرِكِينَ بِهِ, and then it defines for you the state of a mushrik. وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَكَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ أَوْ تَهْوِي بِهِ الرِّيحُ فِي مَكَانٍ سَحِيقٍ. Okay, and he who really is shirking of Allah, the person who is actually engaged in shirk, isn't the person doing tawaf around the Kaaba, right? And he who is in shirk with Allah, i.e. in ibadah to others with Allah, it is as though he had fallen from the sky and so was snatched at by birds, or the wind carried him down or away into a remote, desolate place. Okay, so this is the imagery where we're being given. And that's what I want to talk about a bit more here. So the person engaged in actual shirk, however, imagine falling from the sky. So imagine like those free fall when people go and do those sky jumping, right? So somebody falling from the sky, okay? You can't move, you don't have any ground beneath your feet, no foundation, no support, okay? You are only falling lower and lower. Oh, okay, we have a visitor. Hold on, please, 1 second. Okay, that was a bit of a prison break. Let her get back in. Sorry about that. There we go. Hope you can also hear me. All right, so what were we saying? Yeah, so again, so imagine you falling, right, from a high place, all right, from a high place. And I take that to mean like you're falling from your fitrah, okay? You're falling from your fitrah. Somebody's falling lower and lower. You don't have a hand to hold. You're in free fall, okay? A mushrik, sorry again, a mushrik is likewise somebody falling without a good handhold, all right? They just keep on dropping lower and lower and lower, right? They move away further and further away from their own humanity. You know, it's sort of like in Surah Al-Ateen. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. We created the human being in the best of molds, so high mold, right? Even Adam alayhi salam, of course, he was on high. Then get down, right? ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. Then he went down to the lowest of the low, right? And the same way, a mushrik is somebody falling. They're falling. They're constantly losing more and more of their humanity because the human being is not meant to be ibadah to others, right? It destroys you, right? The more you're in ibadah to others, and the more you lose more and more of your own humanity, of your own self. Okay, so that's a mushrik falling. Okay, فَكَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. And then there's two possibilities. Okay, two pieces of imagery given us for a mushrik. Okay, then as you fall down with no rudder, no anchor, no way to steer, you are either snatched at by birds, فَتَخْطَفَهُ الطَّيْرُ. Right, that's one of the examples. فَتَخْطَفَهُ الطَّيْرُ. Multiple birds. Okay, and birds are small. Okay, and they won't all be pulling you in the same direction. Okay, so let me just hold on. Try to get it quiet. Okay. All right. I've got on my lap now, but I thought you were going to rock it. Okay. So what was I saying? Yes, so فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ. So multiple birds, okay? And birds are small. That's the imagery being given here. طَيْر, they're small, okay? And they won't all let you be pulled in the same direction, okay? So as you fall, you are being basically pecked at and pulled this way and that. And thus is the case with some mushrikeen, okay? They are being pulled into servitude by multiple little things, little people, little authorities, okay? Many barely known scholars of their sect, for example, right? You'll find people following along because of they heard that in their sect some such and such scholar gave this opinion, and they don't even know anything about the person, right? But they just know that this is supposed to be a great scholar, a great imam, and they're following along. And then another scholar pulls you another way, and another one pulls you in a different way. Okay, many birds. Okay, and some of them are as heartless as crows, right? The imagery I put in the thumbnail is of a manga character who sort of gets like disintegrates into crows in one of his ability sort of things. So you have a confusion of multiple birds all telling him what to do, pulling him and pecking at him. Okay, that's an example of a mushrik, right? Being pulled at in ibadah in multiple directions. And you have this imagery in other places in the Qur'an, right? For example, the example of the two servants, one of whom has many masters, all of a claim upon him, all of them pulling him another way, and another servant who is just completely dedicated to one master. Okay. Anyway, so as this person falls and he's being pecked at, snatched at by these birds, he's helpless because he has no solid foundation beneath his feet. Okay, and the birds can fly, and he can't. He can only fall, and the birds have their wings in the same way scholars have their rhetoric, right? They can They can try to pull you this way and that way. Okay, and little birds would never be able to do this to you if you were standing on firm ground. Okay, the opposite. They fly away from you. Right? If you're solidly founded, if you have something beneath your feet, birds aren't going to snatch you away. Okay, and even if you remained where you are in the sky, remained with your fitrah, again, nothing would happen. But another mushrik may not be pulled by many birds. Instead, as he falls, the verse continues, أو تهوي به الريح في مكان سحيق. Okay, he's buffeted by a strong wind, by a wind that just completely blows him away, dropping him in a desolate place. Okay, someplace far away, right, away from everyone else, a place that can't sustain you, desolate, right? No vegetation, it's remote, maybe lifeless, maybe only has other people who are blown there like you. And makan in sahiq, right? Sahiq is it's an interesting word. It's sort of like, it means something which is desolate, a desolate place which sort of crushes you. Like if you get thrown out into the middle of a desert, okay, it will crush you. It will crush you. Okay, think of sahiq, which is something which is sort of it crushes. Mashuq is a word we still use now for powder. Like mashuq ghasil, the washing powder, like that you put into your washing machine powder. It's called mashuq. Okay, it's crushing, it's grinding to powder, thus wiping you out, annihilating you, pulverizing you. Okay, tahwi bihi rih fi makanin sahiq. The wind buffets you somewhere far in this desolate, lifeless, crushing place, soul-crushing place. And in the same way, some mushrikeen are swept away by something big, okay, by a strong wind, not by little birds, but by a big personality, right? A single cult leader, okay, the head of the head of a herd, or the herd itself. There are some people who are not so much in ibadah to the various scholars, but then ibadah to the sect as a whole. Okay, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or the Shia of Ahl al-Bayt, or whatever it is, the whole sect, and that pulls you. It just sweeps you away. You think that this is the huge herd, and you follow along. Okay, it's not lots of little birds pulling you this way and that way in many different directions. It's a strong wind that takes you, right? And before you know it, you don't know where you are, nor how you got to that desolate, faraway place, i.e., that state, right? That's what's really talking about, the state that you find yourself in. Okay, a faraway place, state that is, it's life crushing. You've given up your family, maybe. You've given up your friends, your job, your hobbies, your ambition, your dreams, your hopes, right? Your spouse, maybe even your children. Okay, and you barely know how you got there, right? And this happens to a lot of converts, right? You find a convert, who is pretty successful in his work, in his life, in his family. He's happy. He converts, and very soon he ends up being in a very, very desolate place, right? Spiritually, like far away from everybody, and just being crushed by what he's been told of the deen, what he thinks the deen is. Okay, and I see this happening, I think, with a lot of the recent converts. Stop that, Noura. With a lot of the recent converts who started reading the Quran because of what's happening in Gaza right now, right in Gaza. So a lot of people started reading the Quran because of what they saw from the Palestinians, and they converted to Islam, and they converted with a very they were very moved, right, by the Quran, and they get opened up to Islam. But unfortunately, then they get taught, quote unquote, Islam, right? They get taught Islam and start learning how everything is haram and how everyone around them is a kafir and destined for hell. And bit by bit, they get led down into they get buffeted into a very desolate, soul crushing place. Okay, so that's the incredible, it's incredible imagery being given here about a mushrik. Okay, it's for us to ponder over, and encourage any of you to ponder over it yourselves, and tell me what you think. These were just some of the ideas which I had. And the next verse, the verses, they go right back to Hajj. and right back to those pagan rituals. And it starts off by saying again, ذَلِكَ, thus. What does it mean thus? Thus, that, what was just described, that's a mushrik. Okay, that's the state of a mushrik. While وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. But, and thus, or whilst whoever honors or extols or venerates the sacred symbols, the sacred things of Allah, indeed, that is from the taqwa of the hearts. It's not shirk, okay? That is a mushrik, okay? While from the context, to honor and venerate the Kaaba, or Arafat, or Safa and Marwa, okay? Or even the mosques. I mean, recently somebody was asking me about idea floated around it, praying in the Sunni masjid is shirk, all right? No, I mean, praying in a Sunni masjid or any masjid or even a church or a synagogue, right? These are symbols, in the end of the day, these are symbols for Allah. They're symbols for the remembrance of Allah, right? To honor them and to venerate them, it's not shirk, okay? It's from the taqwa of the hearts, okay? Venerating and honoring these things, the Kaaba, Arafat, mosques, Safa Marwa, the black stone, Zamzam water, isn't like falling from the sky and being snatched about by birds or being blown away to a desolate place. It isn't like that, okay? Rather, it is from the taqwa of the heart to magnify and extol the sacred symbols of Allah. And then the next verse says, لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعَ, okay, إِلَى أَجْلٍ مُسَمَّى. In them you have benefit until an appointed time, right? Until an appointed. And afterwards, their place of sacrifice or their place is at the ancient, the ancient house. So again, not shirk, but rather in them, in these rituals, in these rites, are benefits to be had. Okay, and there's a double meaning in this verse where it says the them here could refer to the sacrifices. Anyway, I recommend you read the rest of the verses after this verse. Continue on from verse 33 because that is also edifying. But I think I want to stop there because go back to the main verse I wanted here, right? Because I think this has already gone on quite a long time. And so I'd like to stop there. And again, anybody's welcome to come on and join the stream. There's nobody backstage yet, but there is. Be happy to have you on. Let me see the chat, if there's anything in there. So here Helix is asking, guys, what exactly means mushrik? Okay, so a mushrik, it's a Qur'anic term which is basically invented by the Qur'an. And one thing which is not as well understood as it should be is that, like, the great linguist Zitsu said, and that is the Qur'an actually invented quite a number of terms. Okay, even mu'min is a Qur'anic invention, right? It wasn't the Arabs never used to say mu'min, like what people now would say believer or faithful. Okay, and it wasn't part of the vocabulary. Okay, the word shirk itself, it comes from the root to mean sort of like to partner up, to be an associate. So, for example, a corporation is called a sharika in Arabic, right? And when you sort of like when you share out something, you say ashraktuhu bayna nas. It's basically about sharing things, about sharing things out. But Quranically, what is meant here, what the Quran speaks against in terms of shirk is what I would certainly say. It's about ibadah. It's about sharing out your ibadah, your servitude, to God and other than God, right? So there's God who orders and commands certain things, and then there will be others in your life. Doesn't matter who they are. Okay, everybody less than Allah, everybody less than God. Your priests, scholars, sheikhs, leaders, your boss at work, who will have claims on your obedience, on your servitude, and you being docile towards them, right? But if you parcel out the ibadah which is due to Allah and to them, that is shirk, right? So, for example, that God says, don't kill, for example, right? And then, I don't know, you're part of a gang or a group, and somebody's, your leader is telling you, go and kill such and such a person. You know it's wrong, okay, but you do it out of a sense of servitude, of obedience to that person, okay, to that person, instead of refraining out of obedience and servitude to Allah. Okay, to understand mushrik, you really have to understand ibadah, right? Ibad in Arabic is all about being like a slave, literally an abd. Okay, an abd means slave, a servant, right? So you think of a a good servant, a good slave, is somebody who is, you know, amiable to your commands. They will do what you say. They try to serve and please their master. Okay, that's the person that's ibadah. And shirk is to being ibadah to God and others with God. Okay, so I hope that clarifies something. I've got a couple of people backstage now, so I'll get them on. Sayyid, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam, how are you?
I'm doing great, brother. How you doing? How's your Ramzan?
Alhamdulillah, good, yes.
Brother, I have a question about that.
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, my question is, the Safa and Marwa, there is a ayah in the Quran. Allah said, Safa, Marwa, the tawab is mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
so we can do the tawab, Safa and Marwa.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it even says they are from the sha'air of Allah. They are from the symbols or the sacred things of Allah. Okay, so
Mhm.
there's no harm in somebody who, when they do Hajj or Umrah, that they do tawaf between them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the other question is about the black stone,
Mm.
Hazrat. That stone. I do not like that stone kissing and saying this stone has some kind of power to take away our sin.
Mm.
Is this Islamic or is this invention later on after Prophet?
Well, I think it was definitely there at the time of the Prophet, right? I don't think that anything was spoken against it, and I think it is um, part of the Kaaba and part of the veneration of the Kaaba, right?
Mhm. But is you venerate this stone? Is this anything has to do with Islam? Is this stone has any kind of power?
No, I mean, there's a lot of mythology, a lot of narrations being attached to them. That I don't know, it will testify for you on the day of judgment. This, that, and the other. We can either sort of like confirm or deny that. I don't think it will, but that's not the point, right? The point of the Hajj and the point of the rituals around the Hajj, okay, is to remember Allah. That's the whole purpose of them. Okay, the tawaf around the Kaaba, right? It's supposed to be a way of venerating the symbols of Allah, a way of dhikr. Let me try
Mhm.
to get this baby back into bed. 1 second.
Yeah, yes.
All right, so I'm just gonna have to let her wander around. She will not go without a fight.
Okay, okay.
Right.
So to say this stone take away our sin is not that shirk?
No, there's nothing about the stone taking away your sins.
No, the people
There's
say.
Allah. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That those things, just ignore them. Those other things, additions, just ignore them. Okay.
uh,
I mean, does doing tawaf between Safa and Marwa take away your sins? No, but
mhm,
it doesn't have to take away your sins. It's part of the dhikr and the veneration of the symbols of Allah. Okay. That the
mhm.
black stone can be exactly the same way. Right?
Okay, okay.
Clear?
Uh, Yeah. How about the when we stone the Satan over there? Is this always been a part of Islam, or is this later on they added these things?
I think that the Hajj rituals are as they have always been. I don't think anything has been corrupted in the Hajj rituals. I think
No,
that they are as they always have been. I don't see a way in which they could have been corrupted.
no, about I'm talking about the when we throw a stone at the
Yeah,
the.
that's part of the Hajj rituals. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's part of the Hajj rituals. I don't see anything. I don't see any way they could have been corrupted. The most important parts of Hajj, are, of course, mentioned in the Quran, right?
Mhm.
And other things which are not as important. Even that, you don't have to do that, right? Even in the fiqh, the traditional fiqh, Hajj is Arafah, right? Just standing on Arafah, that is
Mhm.
enough basically for Hajj, right? So if you want to
Yeah.
skip that, you know.
Okay. How about the Abe Zamzam? The water, Zamzam water.
Yeah,
Is
again,
this
it's the same thing. Zamzam water has been linked with Hajj. It's been part of the scenery of Mecca, linked to Ibrahim, and as a sign from him. So again, it's part of take it as being something of which you're venerating the symbols of Allah. Okay. Um, not more than that. You don't have to. Not everything has to be. You must take everything or reject everything. Okay.
okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. All
That's
right.
that's what
Thank you, brother. Yeah,
I would.
yeah.
Yeah, it's my opinion on that. All right.
All right. Thank you, brother.
All right. You're welcome.
Bye.
Hold on. You're in the singing mood now. Okay. Hold on. Okay. See you, Said. I'll bring
Oh,
on
all right.
Ashraf and Alif next. Just let me try to give me another chance to try to get her to be quiet. No success, but anyway. Everybody can hear me. Let me bring on Ashraf and then Alif afterwards. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem Mubarak. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
And-
Little one giving trouble.
Sorry?
Little one giving trouble.
Yeah, I give him a trouble right now. Doesn't want to sleep.
Oh, my one was
Yes.
like that. He's grown up
Yeah.
now. He's like 10.
Yeah.
How are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How's your Ramadan?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, good. Yeah, it was an interesting stream that you done. I had a few questions.
Mm.
Um, I think two. One is probably concerning Christianity, the Christians, or regarding the Trinity, because I engage with Christians a lot. Over here. I sit down with them.
Yeah.
I go to Speaker's Corner on Sunday, and some of those, the vehement Christians that you see online, I sit with them afterwards. I speak to them. Um, and then the other issue was with Salah. So with the Trinity, because obviously that's the big controversy.
Mm.
So they got the Eastern Orthodox Christians. They believe that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father. So they give Father a higher status, whereas these Western Christians, they believe that they say it proceeds from the Father and then through the Son, and then they say that the Father, the knowledge of the knowledge of the hour is only with the Father, not with the Son. So they seem to, in their theology, some
Yeah.
Christians give the Father a higher status, maybe the Orthodoxy,
Okay.
whereas Western Christianity, they believe that all three are one. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. You can attend to her. I'll wait.
There's no attending to. Just carry on.
All right. I'll just let her in if you want. It's all right. So the other, so they believe the Father, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. So they make it equal. So when they make it like they put an equal sign, so it's all the same. They say there's a distinction, but there's not actually a separation. It's something like, I don't know how they explain it. It's quite complicated, but they say that look, it's just like your body, soul, and your mind, kind of like it's like that. In explanation, they're saying that in explanation there's a distinction. In essence, there's no distinction, or something like that. I don't know. It's quite complicated. So they say they believe in 1 and 3, and 3 and 1. Some of them are like Unitarians. So anyway, coming back to it, so you know the verse in the Quran where it talks about 3 and 1, and then in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah says that, did you ask them to take my mother and me as God? So is that not referring to when they believe that all three are the same? Is that not would we not say that shirk in the heart?
Well, like I said, I mean, for me, what I understand, shirk is about ibadah. I mean, you can even believe in multiple aliha. You can believe there are 100 aliha, all right? But if you're in ibadah to only Allah, that's not shirk. Okay?
Yeah, I get that.
Right.
But you know, if you believe, like, for example, hold on, let me just, I'm not thinking it. You know, when like the Mushriks, they believe like the Hindus, they believe that these idols are attributes of God. They're just physical attribution because God's far away. So we've got these attributes, but they believe that there is a mighty God. Yeah, there is like a you know, like the God, and these are like these kind of attributes. Yeah, but these guys believe like it's all the same. Everything's the same, equal. Like, so is that, what would you call that?
Yeah, again, it really doesn't matter. It matters if they're in ibadah to who are they in ibadah to. Okay. Now, when it comes to the Trinity is just a mess, right? The Trinity is a mess. Then they will even say it's a mystery. They don't understand. Nobody knows what it is, or etc. But the bottom line of it is the Trinitarian Christians. They believe that God is one. Okay, it's about understanding within God Himself that He's one triune God. Okay, that that the one God is a free God, but it's still one. It's a mess, right? It's not. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, but that's what they say. Okay, now it doesn't have to make sense for us to say the position with regards to it, right? A position with regards to it is that at the end of the day, they believe that God is one, right? At the end of the day, when we talk to them about the ibadah, they will say, no, we are in ibadah, we worship only God, right? So even though they have this idea that they're all the same, okay, if
they say God the Father, they say God the Father.
Yeah, well, if they say, the Son is the Father is the Son, and they're all each other, but not each other. Okay, it's still in the end they're in ibadah to one to, let's say, one set of commands, right? That the Father is not going to command something which the Son isn't, right? The Son isn't going to command something which the Father. There's no break in the ibadah towards their triune God, right? There's no conflict in there, right? In terms of how you'll act in your servitude towards God, right? You're still going to, give charity, pray, murder is haram, promote justice, all those things, right? It's not that you have, the Father saying, I don't know, kill apostates, and the Son saying, no, don't, we must. No, they don't have that, right? They still have that it's one God, one set of godly injunctions, so to speak, right? So in terms of ibadah, okay, it's still towards Allah, which is why in the kalima sawa, in the common word that we should be preaching to them, right? It's saying أن لا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله. Okay, it's not saying, and let us not take Isa, God instead of Isa as the Rabb, or anything like that. It doesn't talk about that because they still have that unity and sort of in their rububiyyah towards Allah as a triune God, as a Trinity. They still have that. Okay, the issue is in the ibadah with their priests and stuff, right? So now the priests are saying, for example, homosexual marriage, yes, it's fine. Take interest or do they change the rules, right? They change the commands.
So
right?
that's the shirk. Is that the shirk?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Shirk is almost always towards the people, right?
So you're saying basically the belief is kufr.
Belief. These kind of beliefs can be
triune
kufr.
belief is kufr, and then the priest who preach this dogma of the triune belief, and then they be worshipping or venerating Jesus, giving their salah to him, and the salah is meant to be towards Allah. So would that be shirk or no?
Shirk is in ibadah, as in following, okay, those who propagate kufr, essentially.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, so in the in this, so we, because salah, it says salah was established part of Millah Ibrahim, so they were given salah. In this salah, that was going to be my second question. And they have their salah. So in their salah, some of them, they venerate the Father, and then they also worship like Jesus and Mary in their salah, because they have their salah on Sunday. They'll be standing for like hours.
Yeah.
They have their salahs, and they have it during the weekdays as well.
Yeah. So salah is not ibadah. Okay. So again, salah is not ibadah. Like in Surah Taha, فَعْبُدْنِي وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ لِذِكْرِي. Okay. They're not the same. Okay. Being ibadah is me, and establish salah, it's different from ibadah. Okay. Ibadah, again, it's being in servitude to others, right? Salah itself is not ibadah. It's not an ibadah.
I get that. If somebody in salah tells you, so in salah you're meant to remember Allah, correct? So so some people say, or some they say that so in salah, the traditional salah that we pray, if you're remembering Allah, then you should be only reciting or remembering those verses that speak about Allah, glorify Him, venerate Him.
Yeah, so they say you shouldn't, for example, say the salawat, right?
Yeah, or the tashahhud.
The tashahhud and the salawat and these things.
You say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa la ilaha.
Yeah, and you should just, again, I don't think that's thing. So establish salah li dhikri, right? That doesn't exclude, the whole Qur'an is the dhikr of Allah, right? And it includes the dhikr of others, right? Inside it. Salamun ala Ibrahim, right?
Yeah, so the argument there. They're saying that the argument here is that the whole Qur'an is dhikr, but within the Qur'an there's just dhikr of Allah, so that's what you should be reciting.
That makes no sense. So, for example, you can't recite the verses which say Salamun ala Ibrahim.
Yeah,
is that what they're saying?
Yeah, because they're saying that is Allah mentioning there about Ibrahim, and then that shouldn't be part of the salah, or that shouldn't be part of the established salah. Let's say.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's anything. I don't think that holds water at all. Because look, when you're mentioning Allah, and you mention the creation of Allah, and you're mentioning these kind of things, that's still part of the remembrance of Allah. The people of Allah, remembering the people of Allah is part of remembrance of Allah, right? And what Allah has done to people, what Allah has blessed people with. Okay, these are all parts of it, right? We don't mention Ibrahim because of Ibrahim. We mention Ibrahim because how Allah honored him and the favor that Allah gave to him. Right, and even in the Quran, it says, "Jalni dhikran fil awwalin." Give me, let people remember me with goodness. Right, that was part of the things that Ibrahim asked Allah for.
So the traditional salah.
Yeah. I mean, I prayed. I've mentioned that I prayed the traditional salah. I don't see anything wrong with. Yeah.
And you can.
I pray the traditional prayer of the five times prayer. The only thing which I might do differently is that I combine prayers a lot more freely than I used to. Okay, because essentially it's about the prayer times, the periods, right? Not about it's not about the number. It's the prayer periods, and there's generally 3 prayer periods. But even that didn't change much because I come from the Maliki madhab background, and the Maliki madhab background, both Dhuhr and Asr are basically have the same prayer time. So the Dhuhr can be prayed all the way up to Maghrib, right? And so can Asr, right? So Dhuhr has
You're
an
saying the
early
prayer.
period and a later period.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I get the Maliki method. I'm not arguing about the thing, but in the Quran, it talks about the declining of the sun. So is that, and then there's another prayer, the Wusta prayer. So they argue that these are inferring to the
all of the verses which talk about specific prayer times and these things, if you look at them back at them again, they're addressing specifically the Prophet. They're all in the first person directed to the Prophet. أقيم الصلاة دلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل. It's talking to the Prophet. Okay, وأقيم الصلاة طرفي النهار وزلفا من الليل. It's directed to the Prophet. The Prophet established certain salahs for them as well. Okay, so even what generally what we need to do is just to establish salah. Okay, now if you want to pray the way the Prophet prayed, or seems to have prayed, if you trust that it's been handed down generally right, you can do that. If you want to make a whole new other way to pray, you can do that as well. Okay, the important thing is to establish salah for zikr, for remembrance of Allah, right? And having khushu' and to gain through it those qualities, so you'll be one of the musallin, as mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'arij, right? Il musallin, and then it has some sifat, some attributes of the people of salah. Okay, that is what you're supposed to be aspiring to. That's what your salah is supposed to lead you to. And you could pray exactly the way the Prophet did, or the way Ibrahim did, as some Quranists seem to be leapfrogging over the Prophet Muhammad and saying that the Salah is the Salah of Ibrahim.
I get that. I'm not thinking. Just let me Can you just the time? I'm not arguing the time. So, the 2 ends of the day, and then the approaching of the night. So the first end of the day would be Fajr, right? And the second end.
No, so that verse it says طرفي النهار وزلفا من الليل. So طرفي, the 2 ends of the day, or the 2 halves of the day, right? And then the near part of the night.
So would that be Fajr?
So
Maghrib, and Isha?
the 2 halves of the day is pretty clear. You're talking about before noon and after afternoon, right? So there's a salah you should pray in the morning, basically up to noon time. Okay, or this is being directed to the Prophet, right? Then there's another salah at the next half of the day, and then zulafan min al-layl is a near part of the night. That's the part of the night that you're awake in, basically, because the latter part of the night you're asleep. Okay, so basically pray before you go to sleep, right? Pray at night before you go to sleep.
So you're saying these verses are for us?
These verses were directed to the Prophet. It's telling him what to do, and the rest of the ummah, right, at his time, they followed that. Okay,
and then the Shams, would that be the Dhuhr prayer just after noon?
No, I think what the Prophet did is that he split up. He made the 3 periods in which there should be a salah established. He split them up into 5. Okay, he split it up into 5. Right. It's from his teaching, from his way of doing salah. Okay, it wasn't given to him. The Quran wasn't. He didn't take Zuhur, Asr. He didn't take these things from the Quran.
Is how he understood it.
Yeah, he like now. If he wants, you can.
Are we saying that basically we have this not from the Hadith but from the consensus of the established tradition?
Well, no, I mean I think the Prophet taught them the 5 daily prayers.
I mean, like they argue that the Quranists argue we're going to reject the Hadith. So then I say to them, but this is an established tradition.
Yeah, I think it was.
Is there anyone disagrees with this, with the Sunni Shia? This is established, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at how the Sunnis I don't know as much about the Shia, but the Sunnis, the way they, they talk about Salah. First of all, it's never completely described in hadiths. All right, the assumption is that everybody knows how to pray, and all the hadiths are just arguing about details. They're just arguing about details about people already knew. Okay, they just sort of, we don't get them from the hadiths. We get them from just how the whole ummah prayed. Right. This was definitely it seems almost certain this was just the practice that the whole ummah absorbed from the first community generation upon generation. None of us, I never learned to pray by reading hadiths. I learned to pray from my parents, from
Same here, yeah.
people around me, and that's how it's always been. Nobody learned to pray from hadiths. Certainly nobody learned to pray from sahih hadiths for a long time. The first sahih, quote-unquote, collections were much later, right? All the ummah was praying before then. So, it's not as an important issue.
So you don't see the tashahhud as an issue of mixing it up?
No. The main thing which was lost in the salah, and that was brought back, was the takbir, right? So that was lost in a large part of the ummah, but then Ali brought it back.
Which one?
So,
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah. That was actually gone in
the Qur'anic say that you can't say Allahu Akbar because it's you have to say Allahu.
Well, I wouldn't say the Qur'anists, but you do find some people who will say that. But
would you say
Qur'anists are? Yeah, I mean it seems silly. Why not say Allahu Akbar?
They say that because Allah doesn't refer to himself like that in the Quran.
It doesn't? No, there is
himself as a superlative.
No, there is. For example, Allahu Arhamur Rahimin. That's a superlative. He is the most merciful of the merciful. Khayrul Raziqeen, the best of the Raziqeen. There's lots of examples of that.
So these, I would say that. So with the Christians, I would say that when they make it equal as God, that's paganism in essence, isn't it? Because paganism believes that we're all the same when God and creation becomes one. Like that.
The pantheism, what's it called, right?
Pantheism, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know much about it, but paganism. When you can look at the idea of paganism, I don't think it has a much of an Quranic equivalent. Like I said, I've mentioned before that there are 4 things which are usually conflated in shirk, right? There's shirk proper, which is ibadah ma'allah, but then there's ibadah min dunillah in the Quran that's mentioned. That's a separate category. Okay, it's been ibadah to other than Allah. Okay, so Allah is not even in the picture. And then there's what was it? Yad'una ma'allah. So there's dua ma'allah, and then there's dua min dunillah as well. Okay. And then there's, of course, taking others as aliha. Okay, there's all these things which are often just conflated with shirk, and they're not the same thing. Let me try and get. She's decided to be singing now for some reason. Give me a second.
All right. Okay, because all right, because they make these arguments. The Quran, I see them. They make these arguments from the Quran. So you're saying that the Prophet, when he does something from the Quran, it's not legally binding. It's not law.
Well, I don't say these general.
I'm talking very specifically. Let's say the Salah. Yeah. So, for example, the Salah. He established it.
He established a way for Salah. Yes.
Yeah. So then.
If you're asking,
our traditional view, that becomes law, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're asking that's the way you have to pray, and if you pray any other way, Allah will not accept it. No, that is not true.
And which verse would you argue that from?
Well, I'd say which verse is being argued that has to be that way. I mean, the Jews, for example, in the time of the Prophet,
they would argue Ati'ullah wa Ati'ur Rasul.
Yeah, but again, that's not the same. That's not the same. Like the Prophet didn't say, "Pray my way, and every other way you pray is wrong." Okay, and besides which, when it comes to obedience of the Messenger, he established the Salah, right? Another way, I could argue about it is because during in the Quran it mentions the prayers of the Jews and Christians and praises them, right? So praises the Salah of Jews and Christians, and that is being prayed. I mean, people prayed before the Prophet. Well, why this idea that no, God will only accept the way the Prophet prayed after the Prophet showed people how to pray? Why? The salah is for the dhikr of Allah. It's not for the dhikr of Muhammad, right? I mean, that's the whole thing that is supposed to be. It's not you praying this way because the Prophet prayed. You're praying
So
for
no
dhikr of
tashahhud.
Allah.
No durud
Sorry?
and tashahhud.
Sorry?
There's no durud and tashahhud.
No, I mean, if you want to remove the durud and tashahhud, you can.
Can you remove it and pray outside of the salah?
Yeah, you can completely, in my view, you can completely reinvent your own salah, right? It just has to be something where you do it regularly, right? It has to be in the salah kanat al mu'minin kitaban mawquta, right? And it has to be established regularly, right? And it has to be for the dhikr of Allah. You should be having khushu' in it, right? And you should, the points mentioned in the Quran about Salah, those are the things which are important. The number of rak'at, no, that's not an absolute must. Allah is not going to reject your Salah because it's not, a certain number of rak'at, or because you didn't recite the Fatiha in it, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. No, it just has to be dhikr for Allah, and it has to be regular, and it's a prayer.
And what would you say is the fruits of the prayer? How would you know that you've connected contact?
Well, this is, I mean, the main thing in the
A lot of
Salat
people are
tanha.
praying. I think is a lot of people are praying and it just looks like it's just spiritually dead.
Well, in the Salat tanha anil fahsha and munkar, if it's real Salah, okay, it will prevent you from fahsha and munkar. That's one aspect of it. Okay, so a Salah which you know that you've, as you say, connected in it, is one which starts to prevent you from fahsha and munkar. Okay. Also, if you look in the Surah Al-Ma'un, right? Surah Al-Din, as I call it, right? وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ صَلَاةٍ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Right?
Yeah.
These are people who their salah is cut off, as you would say. Okay.
Because it's showing off, right?
Well, they're showing off. They don't show neighborly assistance. So the signs of somebody whose salah is intact is going to be the reverse of those. The reverse of
Does that
those.
mean they're just showing off for the public, or they also could be showing off in front of Allah?
It could be any of them. I mean, yura'un, they just want to be seen, right? They make a show of salah of this because it's a clear religious sort of ritual, right? But then when just a neighbor asks them for some help, then they disappear. They're not there. Okay,
You know the bit where there's small assistance to help. Does that mean also receiving small gifts? Because some people, when you give them gifts, they don't like it because of their arrogance.
I don't think so. I think yamna'un al-ma'un is about you yourself. You refuse to help, right? It's not about
Some
really
people
about gifts.
refuse to take even a small gift. When you give them a small gift, they're like, no, I don't want it. It's just like they're a bit beyond you. If you know what I mean.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that's another aspect of something else. But
You couldn't take that verse that way as well.
I don't know. I mean, I've thought of it that way. I'd have to give it some thought. Maybe it could be وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ.
Giving and
It
receiving.
doesn't seem. I don't know, because what it's more like the other aspect of that which I've spoken about is that they actually prevent assistance even from other people. So yamna al ma'un, so they prevent assistance. It's not really about receiving something. It's not like I yarfud. It's not yarfudun al ma'un. They reject assistance. No, they get in the way of it, right? They prevent themselves from assisting, and they might even prevent other people from assisting. But in terms of accepting assistance, I don't really see that. But maybe I need to give it a bit more thought. But it doesn't jump out to me in the verse. Definitely not.
And
Yeah,
Tarawih, you just pray wherever.
yeah. I mean, the Taraweeh prayer. I mean, it was something that was established by Umar ibn Khattab, right? In time of Abu Bakr, they didn't used to do it. The Prophet prayed a couple of nights in the masjid, as they report so. Carried on in time of Uthman. When Ali became caliph, he tried to put a stop to it, but then everybody started shouting, Wa Umara, oh, for the legacy of Umar, oh, so he just left them, fine. It's become a burden, I think, that for people, that they think that they must do it. There are places I've seen it in I think it's in Pakistan or these other places where they think that Ramadan is really about the Taraweeh and about finishing the Quran in it. So you have these vigils where they do in the first 3 nights of Ramadan, they recite the whole of the Quran, they force themselves to do it in the whole of the night, recite 10 juzes one night, another 10 next, another 10 next in the Salah, and then for the rest of the month they don't do Taraweeh. So it's become this weird burden that people think they have to do, right? You don't have to pray Taraweeh. Night prayers, of course, it's good if you want to increase your prayer during Ramadan, but it's better if you just continue that for the whole of the year as possible.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and when you're praying in Salah, you can pray from wherever, or do you need to pray in that sequence that they say, like the Quran? Can you skip verses if you think certain, you can select some verses that like are standing out to you?
You can select any verse, but I wouldn't like start one verse and then skip 3 and then go to the next one after that. I mean, you can recite different surahs and stuff like that, but because then that's sort of like it's cutting up the Quran, right? It's like the Quran says, "الذين جعلوا القرآن عضين," those who like making bites out of the Quran, take a bite here and a bite here and a bite here, right?
Is that for recitation? You know,
Yeah, of course, it's not. It's mostly not about recitation, but the problem is
when
that
you
when you
recite, you
do
can
that,
recite from anywhere. No, is that not when the cutting? Is that not to do with Is that to do? Is that all including recitation or?
no, it's not. But when you start to do that, it's like you're making a you're re it's like you're cutting and pasting the book, right? It's like
Because I've got some verses like specific I've selected that venerate Allah, and I've kind of bundled them together to form.
yeah. I mean, I suppose you could do that. I mean, I would just be careful of not reading them all together as if they were one, as if they belong together, right? Because if Allah didn't put them together in that way, then you should sort of like have it in a sort of way where it doesn't start to seem as if that's how they're supposed to be, right? But then again, I mean, some people say that some verses are not all in the place where they should be, right? But I mean, I remember one time going to a Taraweeh prayer where it was a very nice short prayer, but it's very nice because what the person did was just recite in each rak'ah he would recite a verse which starts with salam, right? Salamun qawlun min rabbin rahim, salamun ala Ibrahim, and he would just recite that for the Taraweeh. So that was nice. I mean, look, I don't want to put any restrictions on anybody how they want to do salah, but when if I took your book, if you wrote a book and I took it and I started like taking different parts of it and making my own chapter from different chapters of yours, that's no longer your book.
Yeah,
Right?
I understand that. I understand what you're saying.
That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd be careful of doing that.
I know what you're saying, but sorry, I'm not thinking. In the Quran where it says, for salah, you can. Is there a verse that says for salah you can recite freely from wherever?
In salah, you don't even have to recite anything. Okay, you don't have to recite. You don't have to recite from the Quran in salah.
Are you being serious?
Yes, I'm being serious.
That would be a complete butchery, no?
Well, it doesn't have to be a complete butchery. I'm just saying that you don't have like where is it that you must recite Quran in salah? No, you have to remember Allah in salah. You don't have to recite the Quran in salah.
So wouldn't we
doesn't
argue?
have to be.
So you know that verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, each community will give them a shir'ah and what is it, manhaj, a way. Each of we gave a sharia. So wouldn't we say that this is part of our sharia? No.
Well, shir'ah is a law. I would say that the way to pray, to do salah, that is part of the Prophet teaching the Ummiyin al-Kitab, right? Kitab. This is part of the prescriptions, right? Kitab really in the Quran means the prescriptions. And the way the Prophet taught the Arabs to pray, that is part of the Kitab. Okay?
You know the Prophet.
وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ
رَسُولًا
مِنْهُمْ.
When the Prophet prayed, did he do tashahud and do salam upon himself as we do it?
I think so, yes. I think he did. I think he would say that.
Did he? Do we just understand that to be, or we just?
Sorry?
Is that what you just understood to be, or is there kind of like some evidence for it? Is it?
Well, I mean, the evidence for it is the same as the evidence for the salah. You know, sallu kama ra'aytumuni yusalli, and how he taught people to do salah, right? So I don't see why he would pray, his own prayer would be different. But let's say his own prayer was different. Okay, I mean, if he taught the people how to pray this way, then they did it this way. I mean, it seems to me a mute point whether he did the tashahhud or not. The tashahhud, I pretty much he did. I think he did. And salawat, I think he would. I mean, you can be a person who is big enough that you can remove yourself from like, you know, like, I mean, you can say to yourself, oh Allah, bless me, bless my family as you bless this, and you can do that, right? I mean, I don't see wrong with that, even if you say it in the third person, right? It's not something which is particularly strange.
So you can make dua in salah.
Yes. You can make dua in salah. You can make your salah to be only dua. I mean, where are you getting the idea that there's restrictions in salah?
So, okay, the idea of that would be so we have the command from the Qur'an, but it's not the units are not mentioned in there, and what we do is not mentioned in the how we recite. We see just times, and we see mention of prostration and sujood. Some argue that meaning is not even that; it means something else. Like they say, it means bowing means accepting, and sujood means submission.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, I don't see any restrictions in how you pray. I mean, every people have had a salah, right? Every people have had a way of doing salah, right? And they haven't all been with prostrations and, you know, this seems to be mostly like sort of like, you could say it's like Middle Eastern or Abrahamic way of doing salah, right? With prostrations, the way we have sujood and ruku'. Other people, other nations all across the world have had their own methods of prayer, right?
Were they performing salah prior to the Prophet prior to him receiving prophethood? Were they offering salah in
yeah. They were doing salah, even if it wasn't, even if it was empty or vacant salah. But they were doing, you know, some were doing it more than others.
Did that involve the prostration and the bowing? What we have, something.
Yeah,
like that?
I think it did. I think it did.
Did the Prophet do that prior to his?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Prophet spent more time in meditation rather than in the salah that he was eventually came to either be taught or put together himself, right? Either Jibreel taught him, or he got it by inspiration, or, you know, he put it together himself. But that did come more later. But in terms of sujood, I think, you know, people were doing sujood before then. I don't think that the Meccans were very surprised at the Prophet doing a sujood or ruku', right? And I don't think they were surprised at that at all. You know, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقُرْآنُ لَا يَسْجُدُونَ, right? Quran says, and why is it that when the Quran is recited to them, they don't fall and prostrate, right? And it talks about the
Wouldn't that be understood
the
as
Jews
full
and the
and
Christians.
one
I mean,
second.
it talks also about, for example, the Jews and the Christians,
Yeah.
that when they hear the Quran and they recognize it, they fall down prostrate. So it's not. I don't think it's a. It's. I mean, maybe you need to see historians who have looked at rituals of that were happening in Arabia or in in the Middle East at the time.
You know,
But I don't think it was.
in the Quran, the meaning, sujood, could it be understood in Surah Al-Hajj? Allah talks about the sujood of the trees and the stars and the moon and human beings. So could it be spiritual and not physical?
Yeah, I mean, it's the physical is supposed to be a vehicle for the spiritual, right? I don't see it as an issue when you do a sujood, a physical sujood, right? Well, why are you doing it? What's also it puts you in that state, right? Your spiritual and your mental is supposed to follow your physical, right? Why is it that people would get upset that people do a sujood towards the idol, right? Is it because of the physical? Yeah, because in doing that, it's showing the internal, right? And it follows. If you physically bow towards somebody, right? Well, inside, how do you feel, right? It puts
Submission.
yeah. I mean, because we're
Submission.
holistic. We're holistic beings. The posture of sujood is a humble posture,
That's
right? It's
If you
supposed to be.
sujood to someone, you're in full submission to them. You're in awe.
Yeah, I mean, you can have it both. You can talk about it in these kind of ways, but I don't want to take away from the fact that there is also a physical sujood. There's a physical sujood, physical ruku', right? Um, and
So
the sujood of the trees and the sujood of the thing. We don't understand that, right? I mean, can you point to a tree when it's doing sujood and when it's not,
the Quran talks
right?
about shadow moving from right to left.
Yeah, yeah, but again,
Would you say removing the ruku and sujood is problematic?
no.
Like being serious,
Yeah, I'm being serious.
wouldn't that be problematic? No.
Why? What do you mean problematic? Look, salah is for the remembrance of Allah. Okay, if you think that in all of history, God has never accepted salah except that it has sujood and ruku', is that what you're saying? And He will not accept salah unless it has sujood and ruku'?
I would say it's an act of humiliation. No, don't you think it's a bit of arrogant not doing that?
Well, I mean, refusing to do it, maybe yes, but that doesn't mean that has to be part of your. You have to make it part of your your ritual salah. So, example, I mean, take if you were to take, for example, a old
Do you
Japanese
do that
person.
yourself? Have you done
Yes,
that yourself?
yeah. No, I do the 5 daily prayers, the normal prayers, right?
No, I
But
mean,
I mean, if you were to take, for example, a Japanese person or an old English man, right, old English or Japanese person, who all their life has been doing, like an English person has been going to just church to pray. He's never done this sujood on the floor or ruku'. He's never done that. It's alien to him, right? And at 75 years old, right, he becomes Muslim, and he needs to, of course, he wants to continue to do his salah, wants to continue doing prayer. You're going to say no, he has to get down and do sujood and ruku' regularly 5 times a day, otherwise Allah's not going to accept his salah.
no, I mean,
He can't continue, for example, to do exactly what his prayers that he used to do as a Christian, except Islamicize it. Why can't he do that? Same thing over a Taoist or a Buddhist. However they do their salah, that can be made Islamic. It doesn't have to be where
I wouldn't say Islamic. I would argue that these this would be part of our Sharia, so we won't force it on him. But wouldn't it be because Salah came over? It didn't come immediately. You come into Islam, and it takes time to recognize.
Okay, then call it. Don't call it Islamic if you want. I mean, Islam for me is much broad. It's broader than being, the rituals that we have in Sunni or Shia Islam. But no, it would be in the end an Islamic salah, just as salats of any prophet in the past has been Islamic. Of Adam alayhi salam, it was Islamic, right? Just because now we have Islam capital letter, Muhammad in Islam basically. Muhammad in Islam is not the only Islam. I know Muhammad in Islam is the Islam which is the deen and Allah. It's not the Islam of Muhammad, right? That's not the deen of Allah. Okay, and the deen and Allah Islam mutlaqan. Anyway, bro, look, there's a couple of other guys here who've been waiting patiently, and I want to bring them on. And before it gets too late where I am as well.
Thank
Anyway,
you for being patient. Yeah.
no problem. Jazakallah khair. Take care. Alif, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Nice to be back. I'll try to be faster and let you talk more this time. I didn't hear you well last time.
Yeah.
IO issues. So I was even going to sit this one out and wait and come on next week. But when you were talking about in 72 why Isa alayhi salam would mention Israel, I had to note that he's actually quoting Deuteronomy, and also this is quoted in the Gospel of Mark. So I pulled it up. Mark 12:29, and they ask him what's the most important thing, and he says the most important thing is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." So it's kind of like the last line of Surah Kaf.
Yeah, what they call the Shema, yeah.
And then in Deuteronomy 6:5, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, which he summarily says in Mark, and I think in Matthew as well. So this is, I think, what God is getting on about is like, hey, remember when I revealed myself as one and not three? That was actually serious. And that's what Jesus said as well, mashallah. So that's just a note. The Zamzam water is another interesting Bible connect. So Hagar is they anglicize it, which sounds kind of ugly. Hagar is kind of like Catherine or something, right? With the KH, like Haita, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. She's outcast from her, whether she was a Malakat Imani or she was a wife. This is a subject of sort of tribal disputes between the Jewish narrative and the Islamic and the Muslim narrative, but she's destitute, and I think this is covered in the Qur'an, and she hits up a well and then she finds some sustenance. So I think the story is reflected in the Qur'an as well as Genesis, and God makes her a promise. And so people who believe in the Bible, they don't believe in the Quran, think that the promise was not spiritual in nature, is just that she would have a lot of descendants through Ishmael. But if you believe in the Quran, then the Zamzam water is actually significant because it sustained the mother and child, who then lineaged down to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and that in the same way that there was a promise on Abraham that passed on through Israel and the line of prophets there, that's similarly a prophethood bestowment there, basically. And this is also reflected in Exodus when they talk about there will be a prophet who comes from the brethren and speaks exactly what God tells him to say. So just a few notes there. If you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, some people I've heard this before, and I've mentioned this idea of shirk fanaticism, where people throw out shirk for everything, and I've heard since a long time ago among Qur'anists, the idea that drinking Zamzam water is shirk or anything like that. But so I would just say
explicitly in the Quran.
Yeah, because it's not explicit in the Quran. Yeah, that's why they say that. But I mean, look, Safa and Marwa would never have been explicitly in the Quran unless the people had asked about it. I mean, the whole point why Safa and Marwa, for example, is in the Quran explicitly is because they asked. Yes, يسألونك عن الصفا والمروة. They ask you about Safa and Marwa, right? And the answer said, yeah, these are from the Shair of Allah. There's no harm in somebody who does tawaf between them when they do Hajj or Umrah, right? If somebody else has asked about Zamzam water, what would have been the answer? I think it would have been the same. Okay. In the end, the story behind Zamzam water, if you believe it and you accept it, then it is one of the sha'ir of Allah, right? Yeah. So if you accept the story, like the one, like you've just mentioned it, right? The story behind Zamzam water with Hajar and Ismail, and that there was a miraculous spring, then it's from the sha'ir of Allah, right? And to extol it, to magnify it, وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. It's from the taqwa of the hearts, okay, to do that. If you're somebody
Yeah.
who says, no, I don't believe at all that this is this, I think it's just a made up thing and blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. Then don't magnify it. Okay. So that's just what I
Well, and
would
I
say.
think this is the same argument for why the Hadith, which has a lot of corruption in it and has led to a lot of shirk in the form of saying corrupt things about God or about his prophets. Like, you know, the prophet married a child allegedly, which is outrageous, or that, you know, we were commanded to create a certain kind of political structure, which is not in the Quran, right? That's governed by mutual consent is in the Quran, which might mean a constitutional monarchy. It might mean an imamate that has a voting, you know, it can mean different things, right? It's like the Salah, it's open, it's mercifully open to
Yeah.
implementation. And likewise, so, you know, I heard you mention Mufti Abu Layth, and I hadn't heard of him. I'd seen a clip of him laughing and saying something was stupid in the laugh roll of Schweib, the correctional officer, who's kind of, he's like really in this, if you do anything outside the Quran, you're a mushrik, kind of extreme sectarian Quranism. Although he's funny sometimes, so I do listen to him sometimes. But
I mean,
so I
Mufti Abu
started
Layth
listening to
has,
Mufti Abu Layth.
yeah, so he's
He's
sort
really
of like changed a lot from the way he goes about things. And he has sort of like changed a lot of it, and you know, sort of like regretted the way he sort of like did the way he went about things in the past, and now you know he's been very different from how he was before. He did a lot of sort of like memeable sort of things back in the past, and people you know liked it a lot, liked him a lot, and then because of that, I don't know if the people I think I don't know if they like him less now because he's left that and he seems like some people think maybe he's become more boring or something. But he's been
Yeah.
on a longer journey. And before, of course, a lot of it was instigated against him, right? So you know, people called him Zindiq and this, and he's actually incredibly knowledgeable person. You know, very few of
Yeah.
those people who criticize him can hold a candle to him in terms of the level of actual knowledge seeking which he has gone through, traditional knowledge seeking.
When you look at like someone like
But
Shabir Ali, who doesn't have the lightning rod issues that he
yeah,
had, and he doesn't say, "Oh yeah, this is permissible." Like these are things
yeah,
that maybe take away from. So we'll get back to Abu Layth, but like these guys will criticize Shabir Ali because he's not on team child marriage and caliphate and execute and enslave, like, you know, which is shirk. That's the real shirk, you know. That's the real saying lies about God and corrupting the deen and pushing people away from the deen and all these evil things. So anyway, but I think we're all on the same page there. So I think like with Quranists in general, is that a lot of them are either ex-Muslims or they have a diminishment in faith, and they come back to the faith by reorienting on the Quran and being like, "Oh, God's actually good," instead of what I've been taught, which is that like divine command theory taken to crazy extremes. And that, you know, and then the Quran says in Araf, you know, people say they do shameful things and they say, "Oh, we saw our forefathers doing it. We think Allah commands it." And it's like, Allah does not command it. Allah doesn't like obscenity, doesn't like oppression. It lists a few kind of basic principles. And so this is the kind of, but then it goes in the other direction, becomes this conspiracy theory, like we figured it out, man, and we're the enlightened ones, and all these other Muslims are fools, which is a line in the Quran about hypocrites that always believe as fools believe, right? So you got to be careful there. And what I like about Lath's stuff, and I've watched like a lot of his videos just in the last week, but I got kind of the crux of it, is that yeah, there was a little bit of a conspiracy because this is Shaitan, this is power, the nafs, this is caliphate, getting scholars for dollars. Maybe it was Abu Huraira, as like the Shia like to criticize. Maybe he was okay, but it was other later people. Maybe whatever, whoever it was. Why isn't the Mutawatir of Imam Malik in the top 6 books of Hadith? And it's because they didn't like what it implied, which is that the real sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad is actually being like a pretty chivalrous, chill centrist who's very magnanimous, and not all of this making haram, et cetera, right? Killing dogs. Maybe they kill dogs because of rabies. So now everybody hates dogs, and this is like, it's crazy, and we're supposed to be nice to animals in the Quran, right? So this is so an example of that. I wanted to tell this story because this is a very minute example of your nuanced justice theory of what shirk is really about. I had my mother-in-law over. She was renting her house out. She has a dog that my wife saved from abandonment as a puppy. So it was a good deed. Now you have this dog for the next 2 decades. And I was like kind of anxious about him. I'm like, am I going to lose a kirat of good deeds and so on? And then I thought, well, that's only on the Hadith versus the Quran. You have the companions of the cave with the dog sleeping there. So were they losing a kirat of good deeds every night that they were sleeping there for 300 odd years? No, obviously not. Then that would be an extreme. And then it touches on this whole game show quantification way of looking at Islam, and that it's actually very selfish. And it's like, I'm gonna, I'll give money to the poor only because for every dollar I give, I'll get $10 worth of points. And then I'll go to the masjid and I'll say Surah Mulk and Surah Sajda after Maghrib, and I'll get a Laytul Qadr. This is a hadith, right? I'll get a Laytul Qadr worth of points. I'll get like 30,000 points. And then if I do it on Laytul Qadr, maybe I'll get I'll get 30,000, I'll get 950 million points,
Yeah.
right? And then I don't have to do anything. It's crazy. And so anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna just be gracious here. The dog can sleep over. I'm gonna maybe I'll lose a kirat, maybe it's fake, right? But I shouldn't be selfish. And also, maybe this is shirk. Maybe I'm violating, be good to your relatives, which is one of the key line commandments. It's also in the 10 Commandments in the Torah, over, fearing the idol of this meme that circulated, right? So curious what you think about this idea that people don't have to, not so much the dog story, I think that highlights it, but the idea, that the Maliki madhab is something that, whereas the Hanafi madhab through Taqlid has become it kept up with the Joneses on hyper hadith maximalism to some extent, and you see this in weird fatwa that goes around in Pakistan, which is technically a Hanafi country, despite having really, really bad implementations of Islam. I think that's something we can agree on. And that you don't need to reject all hadith in order to have, or be a progressive who's like, no, we have to reinterpret it in modernity. You can say, no, this is a tradition that goes back to the Tabarin, that goes back to the grandchildren and children of the Sahaba, that was ethnographized by Imam Malik. May Allah have mercy on him. And we're actually more on the Sunnah, right? So I got questioned at the masjid for praying Sadl, because I'm the only guy in the masjid who's praying Sadl, right? And they're like, are you a Shia? And it's like, this is the Maliki madhab. This is the actual Sunnah, and people don't know that. They're not, they're not educated. I don't want to be like arrogant, but there's a lot of, Salafism, like Quranism is about, like, often about everybody should do ijtihad. Like, that's what this is about. We should all contemplate the Quran and try to decide what it is. And Salafism was like that for, all of the hadiths, the hyper hadith, all the thousands of hadiths. Like, let's all do our own ijtihad, and people running around saying all kinds of stuff. So anyway, the TLDR is that it's not a question. Oh, and then Well, so that's a key thing I want to hear you contemplate.
Hmm.
Ashraf was talking about how the Catholic Church had the filioque, where the Holy Spirit comes through Jesus, Islam, and that the Eastern Church doesn't. The Catholic Church did revise that in 1256, and in that same meeting, so they said basically, yeah, we don't want to violate the first commandment. The Holy Spirit and the Son do originate in the Father, but they're somehow all co-eternal, even though there's a precedence. That was what they
Hmm.
decided on. So they thought that would
Okay.
truss it up for it and save them somehow. And maybe it will. I took some small comfort in that. And in that same meeting, they also denigrated as heresy the theory of Joachim de Fiore, who inspired the so-called cult of the Holy Spirit, which is another Christian spinoff. That this millennium basically would be one of greater guidance. So whether the Holy Spirit is Jibril or it's something else, there's this idea of guidance in Islam that you've discussed on the stream, and that this maybe they were wrong because they were wrong about a lot of things, the Catholic Church, right? So maybe Joaquim de Fiore was right, and maybe God has been guiding us all, having retired prophecy, because prophecy is problematic, as we can see, right? That's this whole distortion, and the Quran's like, hey, this got distorted. Now we're laying the record straight. People are like, oh, we should idolize the guy who told us not to idolize any prophets. Then how about, or we should extrapolate all these secondary sources, and that you don't have to reject them. Everybody who follows them isn't mushrik. But yeah, maybe there was other guidance, and that's helped us to get our act together as a civilization. So yeah, that's like, that could have been an hour, but those are all my points. As far as Salah goes, I could go on about that, but I think that's another stream. So I would love to hear your opinions on Lath as a third way, and also possibly this guidance idea. Maybe guidance has increased as direct inspiration to people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would definitely recommend people to listen to Mufti Abu Layth. I mean, the good thing about the impressive thing about him, for me, was that you find very few people that will go through the traditional learning to the level that he has done and come out with their intellect intact. Just give me a second, please. Let me try and sort out my daughter.
Well, yeah, I think in a way, by making the spiky hair and wearing the Punisher T-shirt, because like in some fic, having the eyes in the Punisher T-shirt is like, oh, that's crossing the line, right? But Maliki figures like, well, 2D is fine, right? So he's kind of showing you that you can be a Muslim and you don't have to wear a thobe and and all of this, right? And Qur'anists kind of do that. Like Muhammad from God Lake is always wearing a hoodie. I tend to wear hoodies just because that's what I already own. Um, but yeah, women can use a hoodie as a hijab instead of traditional, right? Like just maybe the tight knit or whatever, right? So yeah, there's flexibility, and he shows that, and also that a lot of these hadiths are false. They're daif, as he like to put it. And then of course, when you lose your mother or your father, but mothers are particularly sensitive, the grief does cause you to grow up. So yeah, I don't love his new content as much. I'll listen to it. I liked, but I'm glad he did. I'm glad that somebody made fun of these guys and then backed it up with incredibly nuanced historical and hadith based references. Um, and that the majority of Muslims are Maliki and Hanafi, and that rejecting hadiths that clash with the Quran is technically the methodology of those madhabs. Now, maybe with the Hanafi, that slipped a bit, and that in Morocco, the king is like, "Oh, we all cross our arms now," so they all stop praying Salah. And this can happen in Islam just as much as people fear, oh, these munafiqs or these kafirs or whatever, these heretics are gonna make it too progressive, and now Islam, you're gonna have imams doing gay weddings, and there are some imams in North America, probably UK, that'll do a gay wedding because they probably figure, hey, it's better than if it's not a nikah, right? Like they figure it's the lesser harm principle.
Right.
but fine. I'm not saying I support that, but I'm sympathetic to gay people, and it's a challenge. But anyway, but the opposite can happen, and that you can erase from history the Sunnah if that's what's so important to you, right? And also that, you know, we're not supposed to make distinction between the prophets. So why are we talking about the Sunnah? We should be talking about the Sunnati, right? And some people, some Quranists, and maybe some Ibadis, although the Ibadis tend to be focused on Sunnah, the Sunnah. They were focused on, you know, let's emulate all of the prophets, and I think that's where you get some degree of syncretism that you see reflected in Hadiths, and a lot of Quranists are like, no, this is Jewish, and it's like, yeah, some of that was from the Talmud, Abu Huraira, or some of the, there's this guy Yaqub who was a conspirator with the Umayyads, and I was just reading about that. So it's like the Quranists love to like kick these conspiracy theories around. Some of them are true, right? But also like the Quran does endorse the previous revelations. It does endorse all of these prophets. This was a big thing that led me to really buy into Islam, is that I saw there was this light in the center of not only beyond the Islamic tradition, beyond Christianity, beyond Judaism. So I think there's a lot of value. Now you have to go to if you go to the Hadiths with a scholarly pickaxe, I think you got to go to the Bible the same way. That's also making no distinction, right? So this is where I tend to fall in this, and this is where, like, because there are Quran alone people who are like, if you believe in the Bible, then you're not following the Quran, and I think that's where I get off the Quran alone train myself. I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I mean, also, I'm just going to say there are those who say the opposite, that if you don't believe in the Bible and the thing, then you don't believe in the Quran, right? I've heard that a lot as well.
And I wouldn't go that far either, because, like you said, you ought to be able to read maybe like Surah Baqarah or Surah Nisa if you're going to get married, right? And be okay, you know, because, like, you know, I mean, you think that God will accept a lot less, right? So I've been reading the Quran, trying to figure out if your theory. So I believe in your theory of shirk. I think it's, and your presentation today backed that up. I'm not so sure about the theory of kufr, because it also talks about the mutabin, or the deniers. And you say, well, there's kind of the same thing. If you're like, no, that's not haram, and then you do the haram thing, then you have that going against you. Or if you don't believe in God, you're not going to ask for forgiveness, so that you're going to have a lot of negative points that you could have probably gotten neutralized, for example. Or maybe there is a point system at some level, and you do get points kind of easily from keeping up with the salah. I got to do asr right after this, so I'm delaying it according to Hanafi fiqh to accommodate this. But you know, so anyway, I'm kind of, my blood sugar is low. I haven't broken fast yet. I got a couple hours and some change. I wait until dark. Oh, so let me ask you, when do you think is Layl according to Ramadan rules in Baqarah? Is it Maghrib? Is it half the sky is dark? Is it total darkness?
It's Maghrib, I think, because you know, سورة you know, الشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها. Right, so the sun in the Quran, the sun daytime is when you can see the sun, okay, and night is what covers the sun. Right, so as soon as you can't see the sun anymore, it's nighttime, right? And you know, in the Quran, you have basically, you know, the day is divided into you know, the yom is divided into nahar wal layl, right? You've got daytime and nighttime, right? And it's the neat division is just that, right? Technically, in fact, we don't fast during the day only. We don't fast during the day. We fast from the night up to night, because we start fasting in nighttime. We start fasting in Fajr, right? Which is during night. It isn't daytime.
It's a little bit after Fajr when you see the light coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Daytime starts daytime starts when you can see the sun. Okay, and when you see a bit of the sun, that's the start of day. And when you can't, when the sun, meaning
crossing the horizon, right? So this is like another Rorschach verse, kind of like the messenger was only meant to bring the message clearly. So Quran must say he was only meant to bring the message clearly. And then Sunni say he was meant to bring the message clearly. And or to explain the message clearly. So they take the same verse and they read it as, no, there's extra stuff, right? And here it's like, no, it's covered by the horizon. And then like Schweib and the Shia, and I'm kind of inclined to this, so I've been punishing myself by waiting the extra hour. Think it means like the cover of darkness, just to be super short, and also that it's symmetrical, right? Like
how would they say that? Because it just says وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, by the night as it covers her. What's her? Her is the sun, right? The sun. So
well, her could be the earth, and that would mean darkness, right? So it depends on the pronoun.
No, it can't be. In Surah Al-Shams, it just can't be. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, right? By the sun and its brightness, right? وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, and the moon as it follows her. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the day as it shows it, well, reveals it, by the day as it reveals it. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and the night as it covers her, right? So it can't be anything else other than the sun. Right, so I don't.
That's an interesting argument.
Yeah, I don't see any other. Yeah.
Now I'm tempted to break my fast early, but so.
And it's the most natural thing.
My other argument.
It's the most natural thing, right? The easiest thing to spot. The sun is there during the day, right? And you can't see the sun during the night. It doesn't matter if it looks very bright. Okay, as soon as the disk of the sun goes down, it's nighttime. Okay, that's the start of nighttime, right? And that's
and there is a nuanced opinion among Shia and Quranists who read it as darkness, about how dark exactly, and it isn't such a fine detail. Well, anyway, I mean, the thing there is that the Jews wait until it's totally dark to break fast on Yom Kippur, right? And this is this comes from the Judaic ancestry, from Ibrahim, this idea of night, the day ends and a new day begins at the sunset, but that they still wait until it's dark. So that, but anyway, I guess the point here is that Allah being merciful, the Quran says, these are my limits, do not approach them. So that would mean like don't break your fast right before Maghrib time, for example, at the very least, right?
No, but I mean the first one when it's talking about God, when it's talking about God's limits there, in that verse, it's not really about that. Look, the difference of 1 hour in your fast, because of when you think it's time to break the fast, that is an issue. I mean, I did one of the first streams we did here was actually about Ramadan and fasting, right? And when you go through the verses of Ramadan and fasting, right, because there are some who would argue, Qur'anists also, some of them say that Ramadan isn't Ramadan, it's actually a different month, right? And the rest of it. And then there's also the people who say, okay, what about fasting in the summer months? Okay, when the Quran starts talking about fasting, the Ramadan is like later in the verses. It's not the most important thing, right? And the timing isn't as important. Okay, if you take the verses from the beginning, it's also laying out what is the most important thing, right? When you're in the UK or the US or northern climates, the first day of Ramadan might be longer. You'll fast like another hour more than the last day of Ramadan, or vice versa, right? It's not about fasting a little bit more, a little bit less, the exact timing, all right? You can have, you can fast up to the night and stick to it, or fast up to sunset, right? And stick to it. But the point is to fast and gain taqwa, right? It's to complete the days. It's to يريد الله يبكم اليسر لا يريد بكم العسر. God wants ease for you, he doesn't want hardship, right? These sort of like getting too worried about these sort of like points, right? Like points of law, right? They get you to miss the whole point of the fast, right? It isn't that you break your
Well,
fast.
if I believe that,
Yeah.
if I believe 90% of Muslims, let's say it's about 90% who break Maghrib, were invalidating their fast, that would put me in this kind of, oh, everybody's going to hell, or this kind of sectarian mania, right? So even if I do it because I'm like, I think it's darkness, and I'm gonna, because that last hour is the toughest hour, right? And it's like extra spiritual, and you do maybe zikr to get through those last 10 minutes and stuff. So I find that I get value from pinning it to the night, to the darkness of night. But yeah, like Shia shouldn't be so super proud. I mean, it is extra work. It's not easy, but we should all just stop being so proud of our religious practice, and we should have compassion for each other. Inshallah. I think that's
Inshallah.
and that inshallah Allah will accept our sincerity in interpretation of the deen as we make the effort. So,
Yeah, I mean, even the whole concepts of prayer accepted, prayer rejected, fast accepted, fast rejected.
right.
I mean, is that even a thing? Does God reject?
Yeah, I don't see that in the
prayers?
Quran.
Then does God reject the fast?
I also see that
No,
putting
these
makeup on.
rituals, they have a purpose, right? It's not about them being rejected or accepted by Allah. You need to worry about yourself gaining what you should gain from them, right? Not
Well, and
not the
the Qudsi
other way
hadith
around.
of the first thing on Judgment Day is that we count your prayers, and then it kind of implies that if you're missing one prayer, then everything else is disqualified. Although it doesn't strongly state that, but it's just kind of scarily implied. I don't see that in the Quran. I see them putting makeup on things with the brackets and the footnotes, which shows me that there's work being done to twist it into a maximalized exclusivist thing. So like it basically, when Allah, there's a verse that's like, when Allah is asked why the mujrimeen, the criminals, and the kafirin and the mushrikeen went to hell, he'll say the one thing, that they didn't offer the salah. But does that mean that they didn't offer a timely salah consistently every single day? They missed a few, they missed one, whatever. Or is it that they didn't offer one salah?
Be careful then, because it doesn't say لم يكونوا يصلون. It doesn't say that you never used to pray. Okay, it says they say لم نكن من المصلين. We weren't of the people of salah. It's people. And you can take that right back to what we mentioned before in Surah Al-Ma'arij, where it talks about the Musallin and the qualities of the Musallin, right? And you could also also be
vitamins theory.
Sorry?
It's the vitamins theory, that we weren't of the people who were getting their vitamins, therefore we weren't getting our vaccines, so we got tetanus and died from tetanus. Kind of thing.
Never heard that analogy, but yeah, I suppose you could say that. But when it talks about in Surah Al-Ma'arij, and it talks about al-Musallin, that's what it's referring back to, right? It's referring back to, we weren't of those people, right? And when you look at those, those people, what were they?
So somebody prays like once a day, and maybe sometimes they're too busy. They don't have any opening in their schedule, like a young mother, for example, right? Dominated by the kid. The Quran says, you got to do it. Work and children are not an excuse. But like, okay, maybe that's forgiven. And that generally speaking, they'll do it like, once a day, and they'll do it for like a chunk of time, like 30 minutes. Something like that. And they really try to make it like a good, not just like a quick, oh, Bismillah, maybe it's like you're saying, maybe it's like a Buddhist thing, or maybe it's some monotheistic Buddhist, there's a sense of connection to God in it. It's just the format's different. Maybe that's because now I'm asking about my spouse is not Muslim. So now I'm asking about another loved one, what's plausible for them to make it according to the Quran.
Look, when it comes to, like I said, the Musallin, when it comes to that verse, you go back to Surah Al-Ma'arij, where it describes إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, and it says, who are they? الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ, those who are regular in their salah. So regularity in salah is part of being of those musallin. And it says, وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. And those who in their wealth, there is an allotted portion, a right that they will give to those who ask and those who can't even ask, right? That's part of being a musallin. And you find that a lot in the Quran, that being of the musallin, it's linked to somebody who's charitable. If you're a person of salah, you will be a person who's charitable, who in your wealth, you think of others having a portion of it, having a right over it. Okay, so that's being imposed on you. You yourself see that others have a certain right over it. And it says, وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, and those who believe. This is why you actually have belief, real belief, not iman. يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. They think the day of judgment is true. That's also part of being of musallin, right? Because a person, when you do salah, and you're really contemplating and thinking of and praying towards God, you have to come to the conclusion that there must be a judgment day for redress. Okay, because your concept of God in this world cannot survive without there being a judgment day. Otherwise, you have the whole, the problem of evil, all of that stuff. It can't be resolved, right? And then it says,
Sure.
And then what's the next one? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. And those who, from the punishment of their Lord, they are very wary, right? They're worried about being punished. So they're worried about being punished for their wrong actions. إن عذاب ربهم غير مأمون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون. Those who protect, preserve their private parts. That's also from being of the musallin, right? Person of salah, person of spirituality is not a person who is going to be free with their lusts, right? And that's not compatible. Have you ever think of a spiritual person, a person of prayer and meditation, being a person who's sort of like running after their sexual lusts? No, right? إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ, except to their wives or those whom مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُم, right? So those وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَحْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ. And those who they look after their amanat, their trusts, the things which are entrusted to them, and their pledges, right? Their covenants. They watched over those things. Okay. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِشَهَادَاتِهِمْ قَائِمُونَ. And those who will stand up as witnesses, right? When they will bear true witness. A person of salah does that. Okay, a person of salah who has this spiritual link with Allah, when it's called up to bear testimony, they will do it properly for God's sake. Okay, they won't hide truths. When that time of testimony comes, which things, other people's lives depend on that. No, the person of salah will stand up to be a person of real shahada, of real testimony. Okay, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. And they protect their salah as well. Okay, and then it says about that, أُولَٰئِكَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ مُكْرَمُونَ. They will be in Jannah. These people will be in Jannah, which is why those other people said, why are you in hell? We weren't of the musallin. It means we weren't of these people, right? So it's all listed there, right?
I like it how it's not just individual injunctions, but that it's pointing to concepts that point to a lot of other verses and that collate into one big tapestry.
It's pointing you exactly like a tapestry. It's painting you a picture of a person of salah. What is a person of salah? It isn't a person of salah. Isn't a person who prays 5 times a day. It isn't a person who prays 5 times a day every day or prays at night, however many prayers. It isn't a person who does ruku' in his salah or sujood in his salah. That is not one of the musallin in God's sight. One of the musallin in God's sight is what he describes here. Okay, the person who has whose salah, whose prayers make him a person of spirituality. They infect his character to act in this way. Right? It becomes part of you. Right? When you're a person who is
so one last point on this note, it ties into your overall thesis of beliefs versus actions, and where's the limit there? This is a kind of thick thinking that there hasn't been a market for in the Ummah, right? So this is kind of part of the new wave, people asking these questions. So like the minimum viable salah for an agnostic who isn't a Muslim, they're not sure if God exists, might be that they have these Carl Sagan cosmos type moments of wonderment, and that there's a piety in that, let's say for the sake of argument. And then like I know a guy who is a very wealthy hedge fund manager, and he was tweeting about how he's Jewish, he's raised Jewish, but he's an atheist, which is very common, lamentably, in that population, secularization, whatever reasons, too much intellect, I don't know. I mean, I had the same problem, I guess. I was never like a capital A atheist, though. Maybe when I was 17 for like 2 months, I was like, whoa, there's nothing like capital N. Then I kind of was like, well, there's got to be something, right? But he was like, yeah, I'm an atheist, like even spelled it with a capital A. And then he's like wondering like, what's the meaning of like, what should I do now that I've got all this money? And I was talking about refugees. So he ended up, I think, donating a bunch of money to the Rohingya, who were actually Muslims, funnily enough, if that helps. And I told him that I thought, based on my reading of the Quran, that you have to do good deeds and you have to sign them over to God by acknowledging God in them. And I referenced Psalm 23, going from, why go to the Quran, like go to the text that he would know and respect. Zedek Laman Shmo, good deeds in his name. And Bismillah is that Laman Shmo, right? It's the same in Hebrew to Arabic. So this is like a common concept, right? And then there's also in Isaiah that their good deeds will be like bloody rags. So this is it's not a great metaphor, it's a little bit dirty, but it's a common to the verse in Furqan about their deeds will be scattered, and the question that the traditionalists put in good in front of it in brackets, and then a footnote, like they like to do with the Holy Spirit. They say, i.e. Jibril. It's like, okay, sure, maybe. They say, oh, like this means that the charity of atheists won't be accepted for anything. And then given what we're saying about the people of Salam, so like we might contest that because this is like they're making graffiti on the Quran to try to make you like convert to their version of Islam. But would the difference between, let's say for the sake of argument that this Carl Sagan was kind of a capital atheist, but like I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, let's say he's like, well, there might be something, and he has these moments of wonderment that sort of is like a minimum salam. And this leads him to think about things. My atheist Jewish wealthy benefactor guy, what's like, I guess you would say that he's going to get points and they're going to be counted for, he might be doing other things because of his lack of faith that would weigh against him, but that you think he'll get the points for that.
Well, look, I don't like to think of it in terms of like the points and these sort of things. I mean, the salah is supposed to do something to you, right? There's really no point in the salah which doesn't do anything. And to become of the musallin might take a long time. Might take like somebody years, right, to become of the musallin, to be of that category, right, of salah and real salah, real dhikr of God.
But let's say for the sake of argument that my atheist acquaintance is sort of like a Mursaleen in the sense that he just helped feed a lot of refugees in Myanmar, or well, they're in Bangladesh, right? But they were in Myanmar. That's why they're refugees. They're not there anymore. So do you think God will count that, or do you think that God will not give weight to that donation?
No, definitely he will. Every good deed. Inna Allah la yudhi'u ajra al-muhsin. God does not let the good deeds of any good doer go to waste, right?
Even if he denies revelations and messengers and the Quran and the Torah for that, he doesn't believe the Torah is real.
Even if he doesn't believe, actually really just sincerely doesn't believe, there's actually nothing more about that, right? If he actually believes or thinks he does or has, but then he just wants to like spite people of religion by saying no, right? Then that's shahadat az-zur, right? This is part of this, him falsely testifying. This is a bad deed, right? It's a bad deed because of
Sure.
what he's doing in that sort of way. But in terms of just not believing, no.
What if he's a Zionist?
Well, Zionist is different, because Zionist is somebody who's like,
Now we're turning up the heat.
yeah, no, the Zionist. Someone. I mean, when you say somebody is a Zionist, I mean, again, what are they doing? Are they're promoting injustice, right? If they know what
No,
they're doing.
I was
right?
just saying that. But he's a liberal Zionist, or maybe he's not quite so sure. So this is another borderline case. So I said that the genocide of the Palestinians is unacceptable. I lost a lot of followers for that. I'll tell you, a lot of wealthy people. And he was like, "Well, what are they supposed to do?" So this is kind of like you're right. And I said, they should use different tactics or something. They should use robots to assassinate Hamas people and fight the war that way, instead of making people collateral damage. So I'm not apologizing for Hamas just because they call themselves Muslims. You do war crimes, and sure, they have a right to resist, but it's haram to kill innocent people, and both ways, right? Anyway, so and then he was like, well, fair enough, and that was that. So I don't know. So he's an interesting case, because he would seem to have a lot of deeds, and then he's like not on the belief side, and then he's like obviously in the orbit of these toxic ideologies, but then he's got these liberal ideologies of ethics that temper those and would make you say, well, yeah, okay, maybe not, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm still not.
only
I'm still
God
not
can
sure.
judge. It's very complex.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, in the end, yeah, all the Judgment Day isn't overly complicated, really, right? And then everybody will come. They'll have their record of good deeds, their record of bad deeds, right? They will be weighed, right? On God's scales, right? Depending on each. I mean, we can't weigh things as God will, right? What somebody has said or did, right, and how much weight that carries, okay, in the given situation, good or bad, or the good deed they've done or bad deed they've done, how much weight that carries. We can't really judge that, but what we'll be able to say is on Judgment Day, that will be, you'll have those scales, right, and somebody whose scales of good deeds is great, they will be saved. The one whose scales of good deeds is light, they will be damned, basically. And that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah.
Not great. And yeah, hopefully not, right? So the Quran says you get a 10x multiplier on good deeds. So this is where this multiplier idea comes from. And then in the Hadiths, there's all kinds of multipliers, right? There's a whole scale of them for masjid activities, and you get special days and things. And the kind of like warp whistle, like hacks, if you do certain prayers in certain times, you get bonuses. Do you believe in that, or do you think that is out of proportion?
I think that definitely is that, because it's mentioned in the Quran as well. وَإِن تَكُ حَسَنَةٌ يُضَاعِفْهَا وَيُؤْتِ مِن لَدُنْهُ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا, right? And that's mentioned in the Quran. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَظْلِمُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. God is not unjust even to the weight of a dharra, a small ant, or atom, as sometimes it's translated. وَإِن تَكُ حَسَنَةٌ, and if there is even a single good deed, He multiplies it, يُضَاعِفْهَا, and He gives from His presence a huge reward. So that can be done. And the Quran also mentions about those who give charity are like I think like a wheat of barley or something which is planted, and then it sprouts 7 ears, in each ear 100 seeds. Okay, so we're going on to like 700. But what I would say is that this comes out after the sort of like the weighing. This is how I visualize it, right? That it isn't that somebody will come up with, like somebody who comes on the Day of Judgment with, like, let's say he's done 200 bad deeds, right? Then he does 30 good deeds, and then that 30 is made times 10, and now his good deeds is, no, it isn't like that. No, it's the sort of like the weighing is done before that, and then what's left over, right? Let's say it's cancelled out, right? So somebody who's done, I don't know, 20 good deeds, 30 bad deeds, right? The 20 is written off by the 20 and is left over with 10 bad deeds, God is not going to be unjust with the punishment of those 10 bad deeds. They're not going to be like done times 10 or multiplied. But if the other way around where somebody has 30 good deeds and 20 bad deeds, right, and then they've got the surplus of the 10 good deeds, that is what gets multiplied, right? That's how I see it, right?
Well, yeah, it's his mercy and generosity, right?
Yeah,
but when it comes to, like, I'll get a 4,000x multiplier on each salah. So let's say a salah is worth 1 point. If I do it with really good khushu, it's worth 2 points.
Those things. No, I don't believe. I'm not even sure that salah has those kind of rewards to them, right?
Yeah, it's more qualitative.
I'm not sure.
It's more about keeping you on the path.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about, for example, that for example, a salah can be rejected, and the idea that Allah's going to reject the salah or accept the salah, right? I'm not
The
sure.
way I read that in traditional Islam is that you can invalidate it. So now you're actually short a salah. You might have to make up, or if you do nafil, sometimes those will fill in the gaps. And then on top of that, you can get points or not get points, but you still have to do it. That was from all the hadiths, right?
Yeah.
So like if you drink alcohol, you don't get any points for 40 days, but you still have to do it. That was the ruling that they did.
Yeah, no, look, a lot of those, the like you said, the multiplier and those kind of things. No, I don't accept them. But on Judgment Day, yes, God will be, he will be from his generosity, given a lot of reward for people's good deeds, right? But in terms of a lot of these hadiths, no, I think they're part of the irja of the Umayyads. The irja, which is the part of irja, is the promise of huge amount of rewards for small paltry deeds, right? And that just isn't what's in the Quran, right? The Quran promises Jannah and heaven after big things. It's not for little things like whoever builds a masjid even the size of a bow will have a house in Jannah. No, it isn't like that. Okay, but the rewards which are multiplied by God are for those who already have achieved Jannah because of their good deeds, their balance of good deeds. So
they make God out to be like American Airlines, and if you use the special credit card, you get a lot of flyer miles, kind of a thing.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, I've gone on long enough. I'm going to cede the floor to whoever's left.
All right. Okay. No problem. Jazakallah khair, and take care, and hopefully speak soon again.
All right, inshallah. Shukran.
All right. Okay. So I think I would call it a night now. It's been a pretty long stream, but hopefully listeners have benefited from both my presentation and the interactions with the three guests. But we'll call it a night for now, and I'll try to get this little one who's still running around to bed. Yeah, you laugh, just wait. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you so much.